I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and
All right,
bad.
welcome to another episode of Warrior vs. Zombie, and as always, I have an amazing warrior guest here for you, Wendi Hatton, and I'll come back to her in just a second, but let me remind you of why you're here. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life. Entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, a unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future, and today's guest is no exception. Wendi Hatton is an awesome warrior. Her warrior journey includes a tour in the Navy and now a veteran of the U.S. Navy Band. She's a professional clarinetist, and she was named the National Association of Professional Women's Woman of the Year Award in 2016. And she was featured in the fall 2015 issue of the Women of Distinction magazine. Today, Wendi lives in North Virginia and in the metro Washington, D.C. area, where she is a heart-centered sales coach. And she helps women entrepreneurs gain unlimited opportunities through collaborative relationships and the power of LinkedIn and BeeKonnected. Her expertise has taken her to dozens of virtual stages, teaching her max value formula. Still the musician, she performs with her local orchestra and has a very musical family, including those in her extended family. They play flutes, clarinet, saxophone, violin, viola, cello, electric bass guitar, and all of the vocals. I'm a vocalist. I don't play any instruments except the harmonica myself, but I love music. And piano, percussion, and harp. So we've got all the music here. I know Ricky Jean Wright's going to love to hear this as my singer-songwriter. So, Wendi Hatton, welcome to Warrior vs. Zombie. How are things in Washington, D.C. today?
Thanks so much. The weather's very nice here. It is a little warm, but I'll take it. It's great here. Great living here. It's pretty bustly, busy. It's not one of those types of places you live in where you're wondering what in the world are you going to do today, because there's always something to do.
Well, it's interesting perspective because you just said it's kind of warm here, and we're saying in Dallas right now it's kind of cool here. And then what's the high going to be in Washington, D.C. as you consider warm?
I think mid-80s.
Yeah, we would consider that winter. It's going to be 95 here today, and that is a cold front moves through, and it actually feels kind of pleasant. So difference in perspective, that's something warriors we all have to learn, is that perspective is an interesting thing. So anything else going on exciting in your world? Were you taking a vacation, or did you do something exciting?
Yes, we just returned back from visiting our grandchildren. We've got two grandbabies. Oh. One just had a 1 year birthday, and so that was the big gathering. Their mother is Korean, so the Koreans have this big deal for the first year of life. And so they invited like 30 people over. They wore their he wore his little traditional garb, and his older sister, who's 3, she wore hers too. So it was really interesting just seeing that culture. And it's really great because our whole family, I call our family a rainbow family, because my husband and I are multiracial. My kids are multiracial. Well, actually, no. My husband and I created multiracial kids, and so then my son married a Korean, so the grandkids are a little rainbow kids, a little rainbow babies. So
that's a beautiful thing. I love that, actually. And interestingly enough, my daughter and her wife that we just picked up from the airport, or I did today, they're multiracial as well, and adopted a beautiful young girl. They were able to be there when she was born in the delivery room, open I love people that treat people as humans and try not to deal with labels. So that's my little reaction, if you will, to what you shared. So that's totally awesome. Well, I'm not going to take a lot more time here in the check-in part. There's a lot of things, and I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more. But I really want for the audience to hear your story. I was fascinated when we talked about your story and some of the journey that you've been on, and Navy and music and all the things that kind of have led to where you are today. And so let's take a quick break. For the audio audience, we'll hear a little bit of our theme song, It's Not the Getting There, by Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be right back with Wendi Hatton and versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, we are back. And Wendi, I know, like I say, I'm kind of wound up here, and I know we're excited. But tell me, how did you get, and you get to pick where you started. I would encourage you to go wherever you think you need to go. I've got a lot of stories, so I could start a lot of different places when I tell them where did I start, and how did I get to where I am today. But tell me, how did you get started, and what brought you to today? Tell me your story.
Gosh, just like you, there are different places where I could start. So everyone knows I'm a coach now and a musician, and a lot of people ask me, so how did you get into the coaching from being a musician? And so it's an interesting story, and it started when I was in the Navy band. I wasn't really teaching lessons at the time because I was having a great time traveling with the band, touring all over, and just performing around in the Washington, D.C. area. And then I finally retired, but I retired early. And the main reason I retired early, which is they offered it 15, was because I was struggling with my weight. They had to, you had to do the physical training every 6 months. They weigh you in, you do a little. For the Navy, you could swim, which I was relieved. I didn't have to run. But still, we all thought, some friends and I were just struggling. We just hated when the weigh-in was going to be coming up, because if you get 3 failures in a row, then you are out without any benefits or anything. And that just scared me to death. And so I failed the first one, and then I failed the second one the next time. And so if I had failed the third time, then I would have been out. And we had, at the time we had my kids were really small. And so I was thinking, I would ruin everything. I wouldn't have any benefit. My husband was in the Navy also, but my portion of it would just be ruined if the third time I weighed too much or weighed in too much. So it was just miraculous that they offered an early retirement for anyone who had 15 plus years in the Navy. And so I jumped on it. So I retired before I had to do another weigh-in, and I was so relieved. So once I did retire, it was a great career. I could have gone to 20 years or even 30, but I was too afraid that I was going to get kicked out before I could retire. So I just went ahead and took the early retirement. Some other people did it as well. And then, so once I was out of the Navy, I was so relieved that I didn't have to do any more weigh-ins, or, we had to do inspections where we all stand in a line and the commander comes down and just eyes you up and down. I just hated that. So I was so relieved I didn't have to do any of that, that I just went crazy eating whatever I wanted to eat. And this went on for probably 8 or 9 years. And I ended up gaining about 70 pounds. 70 pounds. And then I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me that I was about ready to have sugar diabetes. And so that scared me. So that was really a pivotal point in my life at the time, that I said, I have to do something. So I just went online and looked around for something that could help with that problem of trying to lose weight. And I found this one company that it was an online fitness program, but the thing that was unique about it was they had coaches on it, and I had never experienced coaching before. And then, so they let you check out all the coaches and just pick which one you want. So I picked one in particular, and she and I worked together for about a year and a half, and that was my first experience with coaching, and it was so transformational that I was able to lose about 50 of the 70 that I wanted to lose. And I couldn't believe how having this accountability, like she just kept, reaching out to me, checking in, seeing how I'm doing. We would have these little meetings. And so I realized that coaching is amazing. Like everyone in the world needs a coach, no matter what their problem is. So at that point, once I lost all the weight, then I decided I wanted to help other people lose weight too. So that's how I started. I started coaching as a weight loss coach, and I did that for about a year and a half. And while I was doing this, some other health coaches and I decided that we would start a blog talk radio show. I think blog talk radio is still around, but back then, this was like 2012. So Zoom was hardly people knew about that at all. So we just did this blog talk radio show. It was just a phone call with people calling in. And so we thought at the time that coaches weren't as, the general public weren't as knowledgeable around coaching other than, singing or sports or something. So we wanted to expose the general public about how amazing coaching is. So we just interviewed the different coaches that we had met. I was the one who was recruiting people. I had in all these programs I had joined, they had Facebook groups and things like that. So I said, who would like to be interviewed? We do it every week. And so we ended up interviewing different coaches from different niches so they could tell their story for 5 years. We did it for 5 years. And it was really a transformational opportunity for us too, because each time a coach came on and talked about their particular expertise, we felt like we were getting our own coaching session. So that's why we did it for so long. And so after that, 5 years is a little like kind of a long time to get to know some of these coaches, which I became friends with some of them. And I remember them kind of sharing with me that they wish they'd had more clients. They have all this expertise, but there's a huge gap between them and the people that they are meant to work with and help. And so I'm thinking, I built this clarinet studio, after I retired, and I taught for several years. So I pretty much know how to start a business and build one. So why don't I just help some of these coaches? And so I started doing that, and I loved it so much. So I said, this is what I want to do, because I helped one person, one of the other co-hosts. She didn't have any clients or anything. So I said, well, why don't you and I work together for like 3 months and then just see how you do. So after it's 3 months, she did so well that the feeling that I got from helping her succeed like that, it was just such a fulfilling feeling that I said, okay, I am going to help women entrepreneurs in particular. There were a few men that we interviewed, but most of them were women. So I'm going to help them find the clients that they deserve to work with. And so that's what I ended up doing all the way up to, then I started learning about LinkedIn back in 2016. So I added that to the mix, and then now BeeKonnected. And so, LinkedIn and BeeKonnected really, I feel like align very well. So I'm adding BeeKonnected to my toolbox here for all of them.
So we've kind of got to where you are. And as I love it, first of all, there's some lessons here that I think warriors that have been on the podcast in terms of zombies that can get in our way, challenges that oftentimes warriors we kind of gloss over. We don't really see them. But one of them is that the things that being happy with what you see in the mirror and understanding that those kinds of things are also they season your entire, so you can say business, but if you're not feeling good, we're entrepreneurs, small business owners, that thing, a lot of the folks that listen to this podcast, they would say, okay, yeah, I get it, but I'm not feeling it, or I'm not, so that has that thing. The other thing is that you did was you stayed in motion. You kept, you went through a period of, okay, I'm changing from being in the Navy to this, and you feel like you kind of dodged a bullet there, because no pun intended, but you dodged a bullet there because you didn't have to do PT every 6 months and do that, and I get that. But on the other hand, you didn't just stay there. You kept moving. You kept moving forward. That's what warriors do, right? We move forward. Sometimes we get in our head, and those zombies in our mind can hold us back. And it sounds like you overcame those. The other thing that as often I hear with warriors, that's a beautiful thing, is the fact that you learned some things yourself, and you weren't content just to keep them to yourself. You learned that coaching was a good thing. You learned that coaching and how to do things and how you navigated through the stuff. And you started with weight loss, and then you went into, so that's all just so warrior-esque. That's so important because we focus forward. But let me ask you this, and I always ask the warriors this, in those transitions, what would you say are the biggest zombies you had to overcome, whether it was, getting from the Navy to wherever to, it's funny because we talk about, well, I did this and then this happened. It's, but everybody knows, unfortunately, that that's really curated content, because the struggles that you had, or the zombies that you had to fight off, either in your mind or your world, were real. And they can be things that happen. I mean, COVID was a big zombie for people that people didn't really understand. I called it the zombie apocalypse. So in that part of the journey, before we get to today, what kinds of, were there any zombies that you would think of that you had to overcome?
Well, there was one, I didn't even mention it. When I was in the Navy band, I had a miscarriage after being pregnant for 4.5 months, which is like halfway through. And so that's a story in itself. And so how I overcame that, I had so much support from people that, I don't think I would have survived if I didn't have that support. I didn't even need the grief counseling that they offered at the hospital. So after I experienced that, the feeling that I had, the support from everyone, I wanted to have that, have other people have that type of feeling of support. So that's basically what my business sort of, it's about collaboration and supporting people and just making the world a better place so that everyone has that supportive feeling. And I think that really roots from that experience that I had, because that was probably the lowest point in my life. So yeah, so I think that's how I overcame that, just by wanting other people to feel like I did when I was supported during that time.
Wow. That is, I mean, number one, thank you for sharing that. I know it's not even though you felt as supported going through that challenge, I know from firsthand experience with some of my children and nieces and nephews and things that have gone on, that is something that is very difficult to get through. And the lesson that you took away from that, what I call the warrior nugget there, that I think people need to hang on to, is really that life is a team sport. And when we make the effort, when we maybe don't need the support, but we have people around us that rally to our situation when we're going through that, it makes the ability to overcome those things and work through them so much stronger, because it's easy to just, as a warrior, be there and feel like you're all alone. And again, that's part of why we have this segment, is because warriors are always going through stuff. It may not be the thing you went through, but there are always things in our path that we have to keep powering through. But that's that's a warrior thing, right? We power forward, we learn we can, and we try to ultimately bring other people along. I love what you said about wanting others to experience what you experience. That's such a loving and a kind thing to take out of something that's that difficult. So I love that.
Thanks.
Well, let's do this. I think we, and if anything occurs to you in the next segment, we'll do that. But let's take a quick break. I want to get into why you're doing what you're doing today. I know you kind of touched on that, but the things that you're doing as you see it, I always hear values and value that you bring, that the Warriors bring into what they're doing today. It becomes very obvious, but a little bit of that, and then where are we going? So let's take a quick break, hear a little more of our theme song, It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Wendi Hatton and versus Zombie.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how.
All right, Wendi, that was so awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that story. I am always amazed by warriors. They tend to downplay the things they've overcome. That's a natural thing, right? We don't want to stay where we were. We want to keep moving forward, and you've done that. But I love the lesson of once you learn things is helping others along the road, basically serving the people and the community that God brings into your path. So why are you doing what you're doing today?
Why am I doing? I think my father, he left us back in 2001, right before the 9/11 happened. And he was the trailblazer of our family in terms of being entrepreneur. He was an entrepreneur at heart. Like he was a principal in a school, but his heart was in entrepreneurship. And so my brother and I would, and my mother, we would all move to some other state because my father had some idea of doing some kind of entrepreneurial venture. And then if it didn't work out, which one did, we went from California to Illinois because he wanted to sell Exergenies. I don't know if you've ever heard those. They're like little, exercise pulley kind of type things. But anyway, so that didn't actually come out to be that successful. So we moved back. Everywhere we moved, my mother could always find a teaching job. So we were still able to survive, and he could too. But we moved over there because there was some opportunity there, but it didn't work out. So then we moved back to California. I think we moved probably 8 or 9 times in my childhood, maybe even more. But I think the main reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I'm just carrying on his legacy of, like, he just wanted to help people, and he felt like his entrepreneurial journey could do that. And as a principal in a school, he could do that as well. But he had all these different ideas, and so I'm sure that I picked up his entrepreneurial spirit, and so did our kids, and my nephews did as well. My brother didn't, my sister didn't, but I did. My kids and my two nephews are all entrepreneurs, and they don't have any other jobs. They just do their entrepreneurial work, and so I'm proud of that.
That's exciting.
I'm the only one in my generation who did it, who followed my father. But so I just want to eventually create some kind of his name was John H. Allen. And so I want to create some kind of a nonprofit that helps all the different people and all the, like, and he loved animals, different people, everything. My mother as well. She's still with us, but something that is going to continue caring for all the types of people, animals that he just loved so much. And it's going to be called something like the John H. Allen Memorial something. I haven't nailed down the the title yet, but that's my ultimate goal before I go, to be able to create something that's just going to carry his legacy further. And that's why I'm doing everything I'm doing. So cool.
That's beautiful.
It always gets me a little choked up when I talk about it, because he's been gone for 22 years. And my mother has never remarried. Nobody else could stack up, I guess. So yeah, that's basic. And then the whole coaching, I believe everyone should have a coach. I want to somehow create some type of program where people who can't afford it can still get it. So that would be part of the whole nonprofit thing as well. So that's why I do it.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love your desire to carry on your father's legacy. You are carrying on his legacy by just following in that entrepreneurial footstep. I worked in large corporate, but I always had that entrepreneurial tug at my heart. And at some point, almost 18 years ago now, I said, okay, I'm going to just focus on having the impact that I want to have on my family, which to me is entrepreneurialism. You're basically targeting your community, the people that you can help, and surrounding yourself with people that you can take on the journey with you. So I totally love that mindset. And I heard a lot of your values. So if anything were possible, and as I always say, everything is possible, at the end of the day, you talked about some of the memorials, things, for your father, but what kind of impact, what's the scale, the scope of the impact that you'd like to have?
Well, ever since I started coaching coaches, I've always had this saying that they can actually help expand the global ripple effect. So that's kind of my whole mantra is the more coaches that can help more people that'll help change the world, then I'll be happy. And so it's this global ripple effect that I'm helping to create and expand. So
I love the concept. Actually, a good friend of mine, Doug Grady, has a book called The Ripple Effect. And it really is that book is targeted at setting one small habit and doing it, how that can lead to bigger and bigger things. So that's kind of the crux. But the point is, my life purpose is changing the world one dream at a time. And you say, how can you change the world? Well, because if I help you realize your dream, then you're going to help somebody else, and they're going to help somebody else, and so on.
Right.
So
Just
that's
multiplies.
Yeah. And I want that to be the entire world. I mean, I'd love for all the warriors in the world to be supporting each other and moving towards their dream, their vision. So that's totally awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love that. So that entrepreneurs they have that mindset. So we are like-minded. So if we can all band together and just help those other people that need their help, then the world will be a much better place.
Well, and I love that. That's also, a lot of what we're trying to do here with BeeKonnected and whatever is we're expanding the whole thing on a global scale, right? We're in 120 countries, but it really boils down to you're in DC, I'm in Dallas, but we're building a relationship. I have other people in Australia that I'm building a relationship. I have people in Europe, in the UK, and Sweden that I'm building a relationship. And we're influencing things. And if we do that in the way that you're describing, you're envisioning, and I'm envisioning as well, we can change the world. And we can do it not by screaming in a dinghy in the middle of the ocean, letting the social media companies control who our message goes to. Nobody can keep me and you now from building a relationship. And that's a beautiful thing. Just like in my local networking group that I run, a couple thousand people, is I have that connection to those people. Now I have that connection to you, and we have that connection when people hear your story on the podcast. Well, we could talk all day, but let's do this. We got to move into what I call the land the plane segment. You wouldn't know that I had 4 million miles on airlines. I use plane metaphors all the time. But let's move into the Land of Plain segment here. One more snippet of It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright for the audio audience. And we'll be right back with Wendi Hatton and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God.
All right, Wendi, having so much fun today, and I love your story. I love your vision. Just awesome. So tell me, all this stuff, we've kind of touched on a lot of different things here, but if we were to take away one, or, I've learned through doing this is episode 120, not to totally constrain warriors. Sometimes warriors are overachievers and they have more than one thing. But if we take away anything from this podcast and this discussion, what would you want us to take away?
Just really simple is be kind.
Love it.
Yes. It's not be nice, but be kind. That's the way we should be with everyone. And everything else will just radiate from that point, and you'll be able to build these relationships and change the world. That's the whole goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually being kind. As I say, I'm a Christian. I only got two jobs. One is to love God. The other is to love you. From there, everything else can flourish. And we give each other the space to be who we are. And we love the fact that we are who we are. We don't have to like what we do. We don't even have to agree with each other. But if we're moving forward in our own intent and we have a spirit of love in what we're doing, it can be a beautiful thing. So I love that warrior message. And I really appreciate you sharing today with our audience. So tell me, how do we stay in touch? Obviously, we're doing this live on the BeeKonnected platform. You're a certified elite coach on BeeKonnected. So for sure, get on here. Wendi with an I is a relatively easy. I think people, even though there's 20,000 plus on the platform, and even when there's 1 million, there probably won't be that many Wendys with an I. But tell me, other than BeeKonnected platform, how do we stay in touch? Is there any place you'd like us to go?
Well, there's my email. It's very easy. Wendi@wendihatton.com. They can email me. I do one-on-ones. We can chat. You can go to my meeting room. It's wendihatton.beekonnected.com /meeting. You can just go there, and then there'll be a button on the bottom, and you'll be able to schedule a time to speak with me, and we can just chat and get to know each other and just go from there.
So I so love that about this platform, and that's a lot of things. I'm glad you've already got that on your journey. It's kind of one of my hot tips that I tell people is don't have a bunch of places people to go. Just send them to your virtual meeting room, and then it's easy to come back to that same link. You can schedule a one-to-one and go ahead and build it out. But everybody can do that the way they want, but I love it. Well, yes. Wendi, it's been awesome. I really appreciate you joining. Thanks for those that were here in the live audience, and thanks for your patience. Like I said, it don't have to be perfect. We just have to keep moving forward. So I appreciate everybody here. Hopefully this has been interesting and entertaining as we migrated our way through this episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And I always invite other warriors that we haven't had the opportunity to meet or feature to reach out to me, and all of these links and things will be in our show notes when we publish this, and it'll be on all audio podcasting platforms and here on in our BeeKonnected channel. So with that, thank you again, Wendi.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me.
All right, and we'll be back next week, and we'll have another episode, another warrior of Warrior versus Zombie. Listen to the final outro of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be back next week.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know.